This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. Hi, everybody. I'm Amber, and today my fabulous and gorgeous co-host is Kendra Mark. She is the Director of Product Development at Tenacious Labs, who is really on the forefront of CBD research, maybe some research into some other things that we'll talk about a little bit later on, and is the parent company of Press Pause, whose founder, Dawn, we spoke to last week. I've got some of their products here. So if you tuned in last week, you heard all about that Press Pause and how it really helped the founder with her, how CBD has really helped the founder with her generalized anxiety disorder. But today, Kendra is going to really take us through a lot of the science. I want to welcome you to the show, Kendra.
Thank you very much, Amber. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to have you here because I love sort of getting into more of the technical aspects of, ingredients. And I have to say, CBD is one of those things that really sort of came into, it seems like it came into the modern beauty industry, wellness industry only a handful of years ago. And since then it has exploded. But from what I talked to, brand founders, people seem to think it's kind of a little bit like the Wild West. So I'm hoping today you can kind of give us some insight into CBD, some of the other cannabinoids that we might not be as familiar with, because it seems to me like you've really been on the forefront of this CBD boom, correct?
Yeah, I've been in the industry since 2016, which is a long time for this space. And it is the Wild West, and it still is the Wild West. There's lots to be done in terms of regulatory action and testing, as well as just understanding the molecule more on the science level. And I have been fortunate enough to be a part of the growth of this industry, but I'm super interested in continuing to grow with it and further understanding CBD and other cannabinoids and how they can help and benefit the body, and honestly, how they might even possibly harm the body. I'm just a realist and want to make sure that whatever it is that we are producing as a company is truly beneficial to those that we market to. And I'm just thoroughly enjoying being a part of this very young industry.
It is a fairly young industry, as you mentioned. For people, can you give us, I feel like a lot of us have heard the term CBD. I thought it was cannabinoid. Is it not? You say cannabinoid? Am I pronouncing it wrong?
I think you can probably say it either way.
Okay, just make it. Listen, I want to make sure that we're spreading the correctness here,
Yeah.
and that I'm not steering people in a wrong way. But
No,
okay, it's interchangeable. Whew. So for people who might not be super familiar, can you give us a really quick overview of what CBD is and how it works in the body?
yeah, totally. So CBD is also known as cannabidiol. It is one of over 160 different cannabinoids found in the hemp and cannabis plant, which is actually the same species. So cannabis plant, as we refer to it, is predominantly strong in THC, which is the cannabinoid that everybody knows will get you high. And then CBD is more predominant in the hemp plant. And while it's the same species, they were kind of separated and bred apart from each other because hemp has been bred to be quite sturdy, larger stalks, larger stems, to be used for building materials, clothing, hemp seed oil, and various commodities that we've used for hundreds of thousands of years. And only in the last probably couple of decades, I would imagine, we've really started to harness the medicine and the ability to understand other cannabinoids besides just THC, and one of those being CBD. So CBD is a molecule that is very anti-inflammatory in the body. We have something called the human endocannabinoid system that has receptor sites in the brain and the body. And basically, the cannabinoids, including CBD, will sort of dock into these receptor sites and help change your body's landscape in terms of the inflammatory response. There's
Mm.
other things that CBD and the other cannabinoids are great for, and we can get into that later in this podcast. But that's primarily, in a nutshell, the way that CBD works and functions in the body. And it does the same for animals as well.
So, you mentioned that there are, multiple different types of cannabinoids. Um, what is it about CBD as far as it's been marketed to us um, that is sort of makes this sort of a panacea, if you will, like this one size fits most. How can one molecule help with inflammation, help with anxiety, with stress? How is that even possible?
Yeah, I think this is a tricky question because it seems like our industry has marketed CBD kind of like Windex,
Okay.
that it's good for a lot of stuff. And it's not that that's wrong. It can be good for a lot of things for certain people. For example, we've talked about CBD being good for sleep. It can be it, and but it's really not directly good for sleep. It's directly good for kind of down regulating the central nervous system and bringing people out of the sympathetic nervous system where it's the fight or flight state. Um, and also, oddly, and we don't really know why, sometimes people will be energized by CBD. So if you give somebody a quote unquote sleep CBD tincture and they're that sort of unlucky person who's energized by it, they won't go to sleep from it. It'll do the opposite effect. And you can trace that back to almost any type of molecule. You look at caffeine, and some people can handle tremendous amounts of caffeine. Other people can't handle it at all.
Right.
And so I do think that CBD has a wide range of effects, positive effects. I think a lot of it has to do with inflammatory markers.
Okay.
So much of the disease that we see and the issues that we see are a result of systemic inflammation. And so I think that when you start to take things like curcumin from turmeric or CBD or various other natural components that really help to sort of squelch the inflammatory load in the body, you start to see pretty incredible results.
I know that, I'm going to sort of take a little bit of a detour here. Have you heard of this term inflammaging?
Yes.
Okay, that was like a relatively new one for me, where a lot of these beauty companies are now saying that aging and the process of aging, at its core is a result of different sorry, I can't speak today, inflammatory effects happening within the body. Um, I know that there hasn't been a ton of research yet into CBD and beauty. Is there anything that you've heard, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree. I think that we have really drastically overcomplicated the body. I mean, the body is a complex system, but when you really break it down, like I said, so much of our ailments are a result of abuse that we inflict on our bodies over time, whether that's extreme sports and just repeatedly getting injured and repeatedly having inflammation from those injuries, whether it's eating toxic foods or inflammatory foods that just make your gut continuously inflamed, whether it's stress that actually causes inflammation in the brain and the body. There's so much to be said about like simplifying what's really going on and what we're doing to our bodies and our minds as a result of how we choose to live our life, that directly correlates to, you know, aging more quickly than somebody who might choose to live off grid in nature and gets their feet in the soil every day and grows their own food with extreme nutrient dense quality in it, doesn't have a lot of screen time where they're getting bombarded by blue light, and doesn't have a lot of noise in their life, isn't drinking alcohol constantly, isn't wiping chemical products all over their body. All of those things make a difference and they add up over long periods of time. It's not just immediate. And so I think we forget that, you know, getting Botox because we want to look younger is a good thing. Everybody, I can't speak for everybody, that's not true, but there's a certain level of toxic load in Botox that we have to pay attention to. And it's like a catch 22. Do I inject myself with this stuff and it's going to make me feel more confident, which might be helpful? Or do I really, mitigate the risk of this? And so,
Wait a minute. I'm going to stop you there because my mind is kind of blown really quickly. Are you like, what are your thoughts, as somebody in the scientific community on Botox? Yay or nay?
So it's tricky. I have done Botox in the past. I will admit I like not having, wrinkles come on my forehead when I look surprised, or the lines in between your eyebrows as a blue-eyed person that's squinting in the sun or what have you. But I have read lots of, emerging research showing that it is a toxin, and we don't have enough long-term research to know exactly what it's going to do down the line. And so I've chosen to stop doing it at this time. I can't say I don't know if I will start again or not, but I'm just really working on removing these factors from my life that do cause inflammation and do cause stress and do
Sure.
cause, the body to be taxed in certain ways. So I can't really say how,
Okay.
that I'm exactly pro or against. I did stop doing it for now.
Fair.
Yeah. So.
I mean, absolutely fair. For the record, I'm going next week. But no, but like it's like anything else. A lot of this has to be. It's a very personal decision. And taking all factors in to consideration. Going back to, and I love that you said it, it's like, if not having the wrinkles is going to elevate your mood so much, well, then, you've got to factor that decision in. But good to be aware of some of these, the negative effects of things too. When it comes to CBD, earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned that, we need to be aware of the benefits, but also some of the harmful things. Now, I have to be honest, in all of my CBD conversations, nobody has said the word harmful and CBD in the same sentence. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the things, in that light that we need to be aware of?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
I just say that with everything because I don't want to be that person who has a CBD brand or is a part of a CBD company that just shamelessly pumps out products to whoever, whenever. I'm very interested in grounded research and understanding really what is CBD good for. Not just CBD is the Windex of all health supplements. And how do we really ground ourselves in this industry rather than sort of being a laughing stock, which we have in some ways, of people just put CBD in everything and charge a premium for it and think that that's all they need to do. I want to provide some data and some validity to what's really happening. So that's all my point was. I don't
Gotcha.
have a negative comment about CBD other than, there is the reality that some people get energized by it, whereas some people get relaxed, and you just don't know until you try it.
Got it. Okay. It's interesting. You're talking about CBD, and I keep thinking of like collagen, right? Collagen is one of these things that has been marketed as this, you know, beauty cure all. But the reality is when it breaks down into your body isn't saying, oh, I'm going to directly put this into your face. It is breaking it down like a protein. And if your joints need it, it's going to go to your joints. So it's
Yeah.
like not exactly harmful or negative, but there's not this one-to-one sort of cause effect. If you're taking collagen, it's not going to boost necessarily the skin here. It's going to be absorbed by the body. And it sounds like CBD maybe is sort of similar, that it's going to help your body where your body is needing it. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has the potential to do that. And I think one of the sad aspects of all of this is that we've become a society that is so results oriented and
Mhm.
so impatient. You know, we're so used to ordering a movie on the TV now and getting Instacart to deliver our groceries. And we get frustrated if the coffee barista takes 5 minutes to make our coffee. And we can apply that to anything in life. And, I think that the true value of taking CBD comes from consistent use over
Right.
time. It's not an ingredient that you just immediately expect to feel something. And that's one of the sad aspects of this product, or this compound, is a lot of people will treat CBD like it's aspirin or like it's THC, for example. You take THC, and within, depending on the type and form factor of the product, within 20 minutes to an hour and a half, you feel something if you've
Right.
taken enough. This isn't exactly the case with that. There are acute situations where you can take, a significant amount of CBD and it will help, stop pain, for example. But when people take it consistently for at least 6 weeks, I would say that's when you really start to notice, oh, okay, I'm getting out of bed and my joints don't hurt so much. Or I'm noticing that I'm adapting much more efficiently to stressors in my life. Or I'm walking onto this, train, and some guy is like yelling in the back, and normally I would be totally freaked out and try to get away from him or have a comment about it, and you kind of just don't care. And so there's sort of
You
this
should
like
still in this day and age get away from that guy. Take it from a New Yorker. But
yes.
gotcha. It's
Yeah.
gonna help bring you down a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of, my experience of it is it just really starts to down regulate your fight or flight aspect of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and also the inflammatory response. And that's really what I stick with. I'm not out there talking about CBD for this, CBD for that. Oh, yeah, you need CBD. I don't really know. I don't
Right.
know the body. And that's what's so, brilliant to me is every human is different, and
Mm.
how they respond to natural ingredients, synthetic ingredients, what have you, is totally different.
You mentioned before with I'm going to relate this now to Botox, right? That now there is this emergent, because Botox has been around now for 20 years. So it seemed like one of these things that there aren't these long-term effects, but you're saying that maybe there's some emerging research that maybe there are. Um, with CBD, have there been any long-term studies on the effects on the body if you are continuously taking it?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I do know, just based off of being in the industry this long, that we really don't even have enough time of having CBD in the
Mm.
marketplace to do that type of research. I know it's happening. I know that in Israel and Germany, even in the US, a lot of universities are doing a lot of emerging research, and a lot of it is based off of this sort of notion that CBD is good for everything and everyone. And so I'm just super eager to see what starts to surface, because we just don't have enough time. I mean, the Botox is older than CBD, right?
Right.
So, and we are just starting to see some information come out about that, barely. Um, Botox has been around for a really long time. And so I'm just that paranoid person that wants to know, like, hey, yeah, this sounds great right now. I'm going to get rid of my wrinkles and look 5 years younger, or whatever. But what is it going to do to me in 30 years? I don't really know, but I want to know.
Right. Well, and I guess, what, it makes the same point. I mean, this is why I love having people like yourselves on here. The same thing, I guess, could be said about CBD. It's funny. Dawn and I were talking in the episode last week and I've heard this from friends, you don't necessarily feel something with CBD. Where most people have noticed the effect that CBD had on their life was when they stopped. And I've heard that so many times from friends who've used CBD. Well, I don't really necessarily know if I felt anything, but when I stopped, I sure did.
Yeah.
So that's, listen, new industry, relatively new, in its infancy. But I wonder, and I hope we won't see any sort of adverse effects of long-term CBD use and then stopping, but too soon to tell, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if there was.
Right.
It
Yeah.
comes from the hemp plant. And
Yeah.
my personal opinion is that, you know, nature is so brilliant in its ability to just like magically produce these plants that have such tremendous healing properties.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that this is going to become any level of a toxic ingredient
Sure.
at any period in time. I do think that it's important to give your body a break with whatever you do. I mean, I take a whole slew of supplements, and I just find that in listening to my body, it'll naturally, like every couple of months, I just slowly start to lean into this, knowing that it's time to take a break from taking so much stuff, because everything has to get passed through your liver and your kidneys and all of this, and they're working so hard all the time anyway to create balance and homeostasis in your body. And then on top of that, you're just piling on pharmaceuticals or even supplements that are totally natural and supposedly helpful. There's debate about that out there too, but it feels like the right thing to do, to kind of pause for a week or 2 weeks or so and just kind of let your body reset. Definitely if you're somebody that consumes THC, you absolutely notice that if you stop consuming THC regularly, it'll kind of like reset your tolerance in certain aspects. And so that's like FaceTime value of recognizing the importance of doing that.
On that point, because you mentioned, and also Dawn mentioned last week, that the benefits of CBD are really best noticed when you take it consistently.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, but every once in a while you want to give yourself a break. So for people out there who are like, well, what's the formula? And I know, again, everybody's different, but do you have like some general guidelines of maybe how, if we're newbies and we want to start incorporating CBD, how long should we do it? And then when should we take a break? Is there any information you can kind of share, or guidelines?
Yeah, I'm going to sound a little bit esoteric with this, but it might be intriguing. I do think that with ingredients like CBD, it's such an invitation to start to tune into your body and what you feel your body needs, because that's going to determine how successful you are with experiencing the benefits of CBD. So you can look at a label, and the label might say, take, this dropper full, it has 30 milligrams of CBD in it. And you do it for a month or so, and you don't feel anything. There's a couple of reasons why you might not be feeling anything. One, you might be so sort of clogged up and numb to your own innate wisdom of your body and what your body is doing and experiencing, that you just don't know. Two, it might be that you need more,
Right.
actually. Or you just might not have given it enough time, or you're just not in tune with what's going on in the body. And to your point, a lot of people say, I don't notice anything until I've stopped. that's an indicator that there's like an opportunity to be more in tune with yourself. So
Interesting.
I like to talk about it in that way first. I do think if I was going to sort of be like pinned to the wall and do this, the way that I would start would be a good starting dose for most people. Obviously, if you're like 6'5" and weigh, 250 pounds, you're going to need to titrate up.
Right.
But starting with 15 to 30 milligrams of CBD twice a day, ideally, or once in some instances, is a good starting point. You definitely want to take it consistently for at least 4 to 6 weeks. Check in with yourself. Notice
Right.
what you're noticing. Some people like to do a little diary and write down like, oh, I feel a little bit less stressed out today or what have you. And then you can titrate up or down as needed. And then in terms of the break, it's like you can easily go, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, no problem. And maybe you take 2 days off. Maybe you take, it's really a process of like learning about what you feel your body is asking for.
Got
There's
it.
no sort of like science to this. It's not like detoxing from alcohol where you have to go into a facility and they give you, all these drugs to counteract the horrible side effects of withdrawals. It's not going to happen here. So it's a lot more of a gentle experience.
But for you personally, and this is a personal, you'll maybe take 1 or 2 days off, not like 6 weeks, or does it
Yeah,
really depend?
yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
It's, yeah,
A
you
couple
don't,
of days.
yeah, a couple of days is totally fine.
But maybe as like, and I know I hate to put you on, like, I'm not pinning you to the wall. We're not
Yeah,
expecting you to give us medical advice, right? And as a disclaimer, neither of us are doctors. But you have more experience in this field than pretty much anybody listening. I feel like I can safe to say. So you would suggest, start 15 to 30 milligrams once or twice a day. Give yourself at least 6 weeks,
yeah,
see how you feel, but chart how you feel along the way. And then, maybe after what, like a couple months, give yourself a break for a day or two. Does that
yeah,
sound right? Okay.
yeah.
I like that. Listen, giving us a roadmap for
Yeah,
those of you who are type A like me and we need to follow a plan.
yes.
Um, we've been talking about CBD in general, and I know that you work with a lab, Tenacious Labs. Um, how important is it to make sure that we're getting a quality CBD ingredient, and how can we even know that we're getting a quality CBD ingredient?
That's a really good question. It's a popular question, and it's much easier to answer for people on my side of the industry than the consumer. One benefit of this space is that the consumer is becoming more and more savvy. They're starting to understand that there's different types of CBD extracts in terms of, um, you know, well, I'll just explain it really quickly. So
Yeah, give it to us.
there's a crude extract, which is basically the sort of like sludge that comes right out of the machine, the extraction machine. And it contains all of the omega fatty acids, the flavonoids, the terpenes, the essential oils, the all of the cannabinoids present, just basically all of the plant constituents. And then after that, you can pass that extract through the extraction machine again, and you come up with something called a distillate. This is like sort of 10,000 foot level. There's lots of steps in between, but
Sure.
for the sake of this podcast, I'll keep it simple. So a distillate is going to pull out a lot of those like fatty acids and waxes and things. There will still be some in there. There's still some terpenes. And then you can either keep all of the cannabinoids and have a full spectrum distillate, or you can remove the THC, which a lot of companies will choose to do that to be super compliant, make sure there's never any issues whatsoever with customers with that. And then the last stage is an isolate, which is basically like a pharmaceutical product at that point where everything is stripped out except for the molecule of CBD. It's a white powder at that point, and that's probably the easiest thing to create formulas with, because it's just simple. It's like 99.9 percent CBD. So you don't have to worry about the smell or anything else from the other extracts. There's a lot of talk about something called the entourage effect.
Mm-hmm.
The entourage effect has been a buzz term, for years in the space, and people kind of turn their nose up to CBD isolate because of it. The entourage effect is when you have the medicinal effect of the terpenes and all cannabinoids present in an extract. It's kind of like the concept of why mess with nature? And I definitely agree with that. I do use and incorporate all of the extracts in the product development that I do, because some products are just much more challenging to work with anything other than an isolate. But there is validity and truth to incorporating the other cannabinoids like CBN, CBC, CBG. We can go into some of the benefits of these later on, as well as THC. Like, for example, a sleep product, I would much prefer to put a full spectrum distillate product or extract into that product, because it's going to have small amounts of THC and CBN, which are both really good cannabinoids proven to help with sleep. There's also terpenes in there like linalool and myrcene that are more sedative types of terpenes, which are also going to be really effective for sleep, rather than just putting in CBD isolate. So it sounds a little bit more complex than it is, but
Well, I'm kind of thinking like olive oil, right? Like you've got your olive oil, you've got your extra virgin olive oil. One is good to cook with, one isn't. One is better for flavors, one is not. But it seems to me like it's like, okay, it's very purest form. You can extract just pure CBD.
yeah.
But from what you're telling me, and from what I've heard from other people, that entourage effect of including some of, not having the purest form of it, it can actually be more beneficial because it's what, nature intended it to be. Nature
Yeah.
filled up this magical plant, I don't want to say magical, medicinal plant and healing plant with all of these other goodies inside, that really help one another to give us a desired effect. Is that kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
correct?
Yeah.
You had mentioned when I first met you, you mentioned terpenes, and I'd never actually heard that term before. So what is a terpene? What does it do?
So terpenes are basically sort of super concentrated components of an essential oil. So I
Okay.
think we probably all know what essential oils are. They're the oil extracted out of certain parts of various plants, and they usually smell quite lovely. Some of them don't. But we all know of like lavender and jasmine and rose. All of those smell really, really nice. We typically associate essential oils with aromatherapy and something that smells nice. We put it into a candle, we maybe rub it on our stomach or put it into a diffuser. They're actually quite powerful, they're quite medicinal. So the terpenes are found within essential oils, basically. Again, this is sort of like generalized high
Yeah.
level information, and they are even more potent. And so you need tiny, tiny, tiny amounts of them to have an effect. And the best way to describe it is when you go into a dispensary, for example, and you're looking for some weed, some like flower to inhale, smoke, whatever. And you walk up to the bud tender and you say, I want something that's going to help me relax, or I want something that's going to put me to sleep, or I want something that's going to, make my appetite increase because I'm a cancer patient. 90+ % of the cause and effect of that specific type of cannabis flower is because of the terpenes. The way that one cannabis strain smells different than the other is because of the terpenes. And so they provide a strong effect. Like I said, if you want an indica strain that's like, this gets funny, but Granddaddy Perp strain is for sleep. That strain has a ton of myrcene and linalool in it, and those are both sedative terpenes. If you want a strain that's a sativa that's good for creativity and energy and, cleaning your house, that strain is likely going to have a ton of limonene in it, which is a terpene that is energizing. It's also found in citrus peels. So terpenes are not just seclusive to cannabis plants. They're found in all plants. So
I love that you're saying this right now. So New York, we've legalized marijuana. You still can't, you could always buy it, but there's still no dispensaries here yet. And I love when you're like, when you go into a dispensary, I've personally never been into a dispensary. So I'm really interested to see what that experience is. And I love that you're breaking down the science because, through the years, I've had friends who've been like, this will make you giggle, or this will make you, and to be honest, like for me, I've just kind of like pot's just not for me. I just feel like all pot makes me go to sleep, but maybe I've just haven't been having the right stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting thing when I'm listening to you about the science here, because I always used to think that people were just like BSing.
Yeah.
But clearly they're not. Clearly
No,
there are
it's
certain strains that are going to have different effects on.
absolutely. And it's fascinating. And we've learned so much with growing cannabis and how to use genetics to increase the purpose and benefit of a specific strain. And so, I'm not crazy about cannabis myself. It's just not my favorite substance.
Right.
But it can be super, super healing and beneficial in specific instances. And if nothing else, it's just fun to walk into a dispensary and ask the people questions.
Oh, I mean, I'm going to love doing that, just like I'm speaking to you. And I do want to thank you, by the way, because I know that you are really sort of giving us in lay terms, and it's really clear that you know this stuff inside and out. So I do want to thank you for giving us this information and for taking your time
Absolutely.
and, sort of making this information a little bit more digestible to the masses.
Yeah.
You know, so we've talked about this idea of sort of like a full spectrum CBD, something that you seem to really like, that different products and different types of CBD, if you will, can have different effects on it. You know, what do you think are some of the challenges that you're going to have in the space in general?
We already do face challenges. I think one of the challenges that I spoke about earlier is we've kind of been labeled as this sort of like snake oil salesman industry. And it's really sad because even having been in this space, I will be going on 9 years, which is I could call myself a veteran, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still learning how to take CBD. I mean, that sounds probably crazy to you, but I'm still dialing it in, and I'm
Right.
still like blown away by some of the power of it. Just to be transparent, a couple of years ago, for an example, I had a breast reduction surgery, and I can't handle any of the pain pills that they prescribe you after these surgeries. They just, yeah, not good. And so I just started experimenting with CBD, and I took like crazy high doses of it. I was taking like 200 milligrams a day, and it would take the pain away. It would completely take the pain away. And so that's why I'm just like, people will say it doesn't, yeah, I tried it, it didn't work for me. I'm like, wait a minute, what did you actually do and try? And how willing were you to figure out what works for you? Because
Right.
I had no idea that I would have needed 200 milligrams of CBD to avoid, the feeling of my chest ripping off of my body when I would move. But I did. And And so it's fascinating. And so coming back to your question, the challenges are that we're still in our infantile stage of understanding this stuff. I think that the cannabis plant, the species, the species is called Cannabis L sativa, and you can literally split that off into a hemp plant or a cannabis plant or whatever. I think we still don't really understand it as much as we need to. And we're understanding it a whole lot more. Like we're finding out that CBG, the cannabinoid, another cannabinoid that's much less available in the plant, is amazing for skin rejuvenation and digestion. We're finding out that CBN is really helpful for sleep, and it's mildly psychoactive, but nowhere near as psychoactive as THC. So we have a long way to go. And the fact that one plant has over 160 different cannabinoids and probably more that we haven't figured out yet is like mind blowing.
I mean,
You know?
I have to tell you, so I too, like you said, it's not my substance of choice, but I am so pro legalizing it because I have seen actual marijuana change people's lives, people who have been sick, who couldn't
Yeah.
deal with medicines. I've seen things like ayahuasca be life changing. I know there's a lot of research into psilocybin right now, which I would love to just, I want to be mindful of your time before we let you go. Are Tenacious Labs, are you guys kind of looking there? There's a lot of murmur in the industry about companies who are really now starting to talk about psilocybin, which
Yes.
is, magic mushrooms, if you will.
Yeah.
But what are you hearing in this space? Because I've heard, yeah, what are you hearing in the space?
Psilocybin is my like love. I am extremely eager to continue to participate in research and development on the product side of things with psilocybin. I've personally experienced tremendous growth within myself, within my career, within just creative approaches and even logical approaches to my career and my life, relationships, interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships as a result of um, honestly ingesting psilocybin in a really reverent way. Microdosing psilocybin is also something that's being largely talked about right now and has been recently. It's a totally different type of compound, and I believe in both. I think that CBD and THC and other cannabinoids are super healing and powerful for various reasons, and I think the same with psilocybin. You know, a week or so ago, you had Elon Musk on Twitter talking about his belief that psychedelics are sort of the way of our future for mitigating trauma and anxiety and depression and relationship issues and things of that nature. And I wholeheartedly agree. I said degree because I have a degree in somatic psychology, and I have colleagues in this, in the psychiatric space that are starting to turn towards things like ketamine and psilocybin and MDMA, and really standing up against this whole war on drugs situation that happened so long ago, and really reforming it, because these molecules very quickly help you to see yourself. They very quickly move your attention inward and get you to really realize what's going on without the buffer of your mind or your ego getting in the way and saying, no, I can't go there, or I don't want to talk about that, or whatever. So you can end up in therapy for your whole life, kind of looping around.
Right.
And when you do these substances in a reverent, therapeutic way with a facilitator who is trained, you have the ability to just like plow through so much so quickly.
Right.
And so I'm a huge proponent of it. To circle back to your question about the involvement that we have at Tenacious Labs, It's definitely on the radar. It's definitely of interest with our upper management, myself included, as a very medicinal approach to entering the marketplace, and rather than being something for like social use and subsequently social abuse. So we're being incredibly careful with it. There's no research being done, or really anything internally at this time, other than just watching the market and being part of the conversations on a government or parliament level, as our
Right.
company is based in the UK. But as soon as regulatory action is, happening, and it becomes legal for us to start studying it internally, we will be doing that.
Interesting. You know what? I'm sorry for I hope I didn't put you on the spot, but you're right. As I was saying this, I'm like, I know that in certain places it's decriminalized, but I guess it's not legalized anywhere. But I know that, especially here in New York City, I mean, everybody from soccer moms to Fortune 500 owners is microdosing.
Yeah.
I've tried it before. I believe in the power of this. It's funny when you say the war on drugs. It's like we started this war on drugs, but yet we pushed every other pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
And maybe we should consider the war on pharmaceuticals, and allow some of these sort of therapeutic plants to help the way, nature intended them. And, I want to be mindful, like I said, of your time, but I want to thank you so much. And please promise me, if and when we can have the conversations about things like psilocybin, ketamine, MDMA, which unfortunately have become associated, like you said, with recreational use and abuse, but
Yeah.
actually have some real therapeutic benefits to them. I hope that you'll come back on, because you are
I would
so
be
brilliant.
I would love to. That would be fantastic. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank you so, so much. Kendra, I know that you were involved in, the creation of a lot of these press pause projects. If you go on Tenacious Labs, which is tenacious-labs.com
Yeah.
website, you can see some of the other brands. I know that you had a brand yourself that you sold, a CBD brand. If people want to know more about this, where would they go?
That's a great question. We have, aside from our website, which is kind of basic, we're very active on LinkedIn with Tenacious Labs. That's a great place to start. And then the Press Pause brand has all types of articles and research and information on their website. But in general, there's lots of different really great resources online for understanding more about CBD and THC.
Wonderful. I want to thank you so much. And of course, if you at home have any questions that you want me to pass along to Kendra, the team at Tenacious Labs, I'm always happy to do that. If you want a little bit of a buffer, it's cool. You can write to me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday, maybe just like a little calmer and chiller.
Awesome. Thank
Bye.
you.